Own nothing. The paradox does not elude me. Oh wait, where did it go? It escaped, that slippery minx. Own and nothing. Bred in captivity for the purpose of reproduction. A shopkeeper puts a discount sign on his storefront. Half off of nothing for the next 24 hours. Why would I buy nothing? Because it is everything, he grins, and so on and so forth. Empty is full. Vinegar tastes like honey to Winnie. The question isn't how to win, but how to lose it all and grin. This episode is sponsored by no one. Our return guest today is Rodney Norman, comedian, philosopher, joy sparker, and immortal laugher. How are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for having me here.
Of course, welcome back. The laughter of the immortals has always been one of my favorite Hermann Hesse in Steppenwolf descriptions of the only way to escape the drudgery of self and the illusion of, identity and life perhaps is to laugh yourself free in the magic mirror. And then you get to join the laughter of the immortals who are out there giggling at the show. So I think you're related to them. My projection upon you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's quite an honor.
So as we begin our journey in the hearse, I'm in the trunk, Death is driving, maybe you're sitting shotgun. Where do you think death is taking us today? Alaska, Nebraska? Where are we headed? You're on an adventure right now and had some engine trouble and
yeah, it turns out just outside of St. Joseph, Missouri is where it's taking us. Or at least that's where it's taken me.
Cool. And now we're here in somewhere near Santa Barbara. So what does own nothing evoke in you? When I mentioned that to you when you walked in, I think you said, I've got that covered
Well, all of this is temporary. We like to think that we have things or we own things or, when someone we love moves on or passes away, we feel like we've lost something. But in reality, we've never had anything. We've never owned anything. Even the wealthiest people with all their money and their masses and their huge mansions, and they die, it's still here and they go away. And it's all temporary. It's all just fleeting moments of nothingness. And so we get worried and upset about losing our stuff when in reality we really don't have anything. We're just borrowing everything around us. It's all temporary. At least that's how I view it.
Agreed. No, I do too. So as I was thinking about this idea, obviously owned by what you own is something people might say possessions end up owning you, the stress, of maintaining or keeping or just the hungry ghost syndrome of that. Owned by beliefs, I feel like that can also be a slippery slope of.
Oh, certainly.
Owned by identity, ideologies, etc. Giving it all away while keeping your true you intact. I don't know how to exactly specify what I mean, but we or the you or the some soul perhaps is how I might see it, the love. What is that like? Because I feel like you do embody that in many ways, but to be aware that it's all temporary, but not so detached and dissociated where nothing means anything, because I feel like that can be another section of the path for, okay, we don't own anything, it's all temporary, fuck it, it's a video game, but also having the meaning while having that.
Well, it's the moments, it's the relationships that we have. That's what it's all about. It's not about the stuff and accumulating awards and things and money and power and prestige. All of those things are just, window dressings. It really isn't anything. What matters, what really it's all about is about the connections that we have with others and the relationships that we develop, because that's the only real thing
Mm-hmm.
that we have and that we are. And when you finally see that,
Mm.
it's easy not to get hung up about, your car's head gasket and alternator going out and costing you thousands of dollars. Instead of getting upset about it, it's like, nah, oh, well, it's just more stuff.
Are you able to do that pretty quickly in the moment?
Yes. I mean, I still, you still get frustrated because, all it's going to take and all that it's going to incur. But at the same time, because of these difficulties that I ran into, I met some wonderful people who were like a gentleman who just saw us, parked in a gas station parking lot with our hood up. He just, he didn't know who I was. He didn't know who we were. He didn't know what our situation was, but he stopped his truck and walked over and said, "Is there anything I can do to help?" And when I explained to him what I needed tools and parts. And he says, "Well, I'll take you wherever you need to go." And he drove me around town and we got all the stuff I needed. And I got to talk to him and hear about his life. And it was like, this is a gentleman I would have never met ever in my life. And here was this one opportunity to meet him. And it was only for a moment, but it was nice because I got to meet a human being who cares just to care. He wasn't out to get anything for it. He wouldn't accept any money. He wasn't doing it for being aggrandized. He wasn't making a video for his YouTube channel or anything. He was just a nice guy that saw someone in need and he stopped and helped me. And I got to meet this guy. I got to meet this wonderful human being that I would not have gotten to meet had it not been for the car trouble. And then when we got that part fixed, and then the car had more trouble, and then I was stuck in a situation where I needed to be thousands of miles away, and I had no way to get there. And a friend out of nowhere contacted me and said, "I understand you're having some trouble. Can I help?" And I told him what my situation was. Next thing I know, he got me a plane ticket and flew me where I needed to be.
Wow.
And I try to repay him and he won't take it. He just wanted to help. And so in these moments of despair, as it were, I'm finding opportunity where people are, it's like, oh, I don't feel like anybody cares about me. But when I really needed help, there they are, and I'm finding this even more with, my daughter is going through a lot of health issues and battling cancer and is starting treatment, and she's bedridden because of pain and all this stuff. And I didn't want, I didn't want to go out to the world and say, "Oh, look, oh, woe is me, woe is me." But I felt like I wanted to share what I was the experience with others, and the outpouring of kindness and just concern and love for my daughter, who none of these people have ever met, but they've gone overboard, to show her some compassion and kindness at this time, and it's just overwhelming. So it's like, so we have these moments that are difficult and the draws, in every direction possible. But then out of all of this, we get to see so much beauty and so much kindness and love and grace if we're willing to open ourselves up to it, instead of being so caught up as like, oh, I'll do it myself. I'm a strong, independent person. I don't need anybody's help. And it's like, no, you do, and be willing to accept it and be willing to ask for it. It's a beautiful thing. It's a humbling thing. It's really where you got to kill your ego. And that's what that means is surrendering your pride, surrendering that need to be in control of everything and just turning your life over to the experience and just enjoying it, being a part of it.
It's really beautiful. Recently, this happened the other day on an episode where I had the title, and then I changed it midway because we came up with what I felt was cooler and more alive title. And now I feel like this episode should be called Car Trouble, especially because it's Pink Hearse. So we might have to do an AKA. Yeah, thank you for all of that beautiful, embodied. We spoke about it a little bit on the last episode, but it's one thing, obviously, to talk about whatever it is you believe. And in this day and age, everyone seems to have opinions, but to embody it and to experience it and to live it, and the poetry of, the pain, and still having those perspectives and walking them means the world. And it reminds me, I've been thinking a lot about religions and beliefs and people arguing. And even if you're aware, one of my favorite artists engaged in a world war with another rapper, Drake and Kendrick, and Kendrick's is like one of my favorite, beings who really, like we talked about on the last one with people like, I guess, Richard Pryor to Mark Twain's, to people who really stood for something and also, made beautiful entertainment. Anyway, all of that stuff has made me feel sicker and sicker and sadder for some reason, the louder the arguments have been getting. And I find myself caught in a kind of catch-22 where I am feeling the anti-belief system in me, where I'm like, wait a minute, you're running around preaching and now I'm falling into the same trap. And it's a nuance. Everything is subtle. And talking with Molly, who's a depth psychologist, my wife, and, I have great people to process. And I think all sides should be welcomed, at least in my experience with her, whether it's the depression, anger, they're all valid and they all have their place. So it's not about eradicating. But my mom sent me this little poem because her and I were talking about just religion, specifically how it can be a little bit blind and maybe hypocritical and divisive, even though it might appear to be connected or trying to connect at its root. And I just wanted to read this. I actually read it on another, but it's called Small Kindnesses by someone named Danusha Lamaris. I don't know if you're familiar. I've been thinking about the way when you walk down a crowded aisle, people pull in their legs to let you by, or how strangers still say bless you when someone sneezes, a leftover from the bubonic plague. Don't die, we are saying. And sometimes when you spill lemons from your grocery bag, someone else will help you pick them up. Mostly, we don't want to harm each other. We want to be handed our cup of coffee hot and to say thank you to the person handing it, to smile at them and for them to smile back, for the waitress to call us honey when she sets down the bowl of clam chowder, and for the driver in the red pickup truck to let us pass. We have so little of each other now, so far from tribe and fire, only these brief moments of exchange. What if they are the true dwellings of the holy, these fleeting temples we make together when we say, here, have my seat, go ahead, you first, I like your hat. You basically just said that, but just to add another echoing voice of the immortals into the fleeting temples, that what we truly do have, these moments of connection.
Yes, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you after. All right, here we are, driving along, always hitting a couple potholes and having some fun. Well, this is I guess a curveball from where we were, but another thing that's been present recently is when being woke goes wrong, being too woke, if you will, and the tiptoe eggshell insanity, in my opinion, of, it just getting a little out of control, of like the one-upmanship of, I do know that you're not supposed to, and then just being paralyzed and like, wah.
Well, it's they surrender one set of limiting beliefs to acquire a new set of limiting beliefs, but think that they're open and woke. And really, they've just lulled themselves back to sleep again.
Yeah, it's tricky, man. That reminds me of the idea of like, light is where the I don't believe personally in evil or demons or anything. I think it's all energy and imbalance, perhaps, whatever. But it hides in the light. It actually is closer in the, the people preaching or being woke. There's actually a sneaky sleeper right there wielding the puppet strings. How do you navigate that, I guess, with your own social media presence, voice? I don't know if you get in trouble for anything because you're pretty.
Well, the thing I find is that when people get upset with me, it's not because they're really upset with me. It's they're upset with the way they interpreted something that I said.
Yeah.
It's like I did an apology. This was almost, it was 10 years ago. And it was something that had happened online. I don't even remember the incident specifically, but I remember this lady was upset with something I'd posted. And so I did an apology. And I basically said, I'm really sorry that you're such an idiot, that you got offended by that, that you're so wrapped up in your cocoon of ignorance that you're incapable of just enjoying something for being funny. That sometimes you just do things that are funny because they're funny. You're not trying to make a point. It's just, just be silly. And it was funny because I did the apology, just kind of having fun with it. It becomes more relevant every day.
I'm sure.
And it is. It's part of that ego. It's like when somebody thinks they've become woke, they think, and they think of themselves as a warrior of injustice, and they're there to right all the wrongs of the past, and they're smarter than everyone else, and they see things that others don't see. It's like, no, we all see it. We all know these things. We all know how to be a nice person. We all know how to be a compassionate person. And that's really what it is. But they've taken this idea of compassion, and now they're forcing everyone else to be compassionate like them. And in doing so, they become uncompassionate.
100%.
It's like you turn into the exact monster you're trying to fight.
Always. Yeah, and it's if you're looking for it, you'll probably find it. It's like the lens we can choose to, see through would be benefit of the doubt, or in the heart, or we're going to look for the slip-ups that are inevitable as humans, and so it's impossible.
All flawed. I mean,
exactly.
It's like I've always said, why hate somebody for something like their religion or their politics or the color of their skin, when you can just really get to know someone and find something real to hate them for.
That's great. And on that note, just to, I guess, to roll down the windows and air out whatever is in the hearse. A similar topic of sneaky parading of perfection or the right way, which also feels very tyrannical and dangerous, is the modern kind of online health teacher guru stuff, which my wife, who went to Pacifica, which is a depth program, Carl Jung inspired, et cetera. So they have a wonderful holding of alchemical, unconscious, just fantastic way of, in my experience, of a lot of cosmologies or ways to look at. And she was saying that it feels almost patriarchal, which I'm not trying to hate on. Again, we can get tangled. That word, every word is so, suddenly that's evoked 1,000 things in whoever's listening. That is not what I meant. So I say that lightly, but just this kind of, agricultural, plow the land, plow your mind, over-till your soil, over-till your soul, just like grind and deliver, whatever that is, and that mentality, which feels very far from a more matriarchal, perhaps, or someone who's more in tune with their rhythms of their period, literally, all the way to the seasons, all the way to the rest, to the decay, to the expansion, to the et cetera. That although it can be wielded, the modern health stuff, as like detox your blah, 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 and I'm not throwing all the water out or the baby out or whoever out, but she just had this interesting insight that it can be sneakily perfectionist and like this over demanding standard for women need to be not just stay at home moms, but they have to be good mothers, but they should also work, but they have to look like this. And you better stop drinking alcohol, which I recently did. And I've been off it for 7 years before that. And I'm all about whatever journey you need to do to be you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm curious your thoughts on this kind of time where it can just be so overwhelming. Everyone has the new opinion of how you need to live.
Well, first of all, stop listening to everybody else and just live what's within you. You know, if a woman wants to stay at home and raise kids and be a housewife, why should anyone care? That's beautiful to dedicate themselves to the well-being of children.
100%.
I mean, a childhood, that is an amazing thing to be able to raise a child who's going to go into the world and not be a problem to the rest of the world, who's going to go from a very healthy perspective, who's going to go into the world having known and experienced love, and is capable of going out and sharing that with other people. That's a beautiful thing. But also, if somebody wants to work hard and dedicate themselves to a profession and a career, and they're able to do something in that brings, finds a cure for cancer or helps teach people how to live healthier and work through that, that's beautiful too.
Yeah.
We all shouldn't be on the same path. And this idea that you expect everyone to be on the same path to be able to prove some weird, strange point that you think that you're making.
Yeah.
No, we're all here to have our own experience. And instead of forcing or pushing your perspective on this, appreciate everybody for who they are and what they're doing. And no one is below anyone else just because they decide not to have a career doesn't mean that they're any less of a person. I think, if anything, that's an amazingly beautiful, altruistic thing that they've done with their lives. They're literally dedicating their life to raise other human beings so that their lives will have some greater meaning.
It's one of the hardest jobs too, I would say.
Absolutely.
What we were joking, my friend and I, Michael, he came up with this, and then I mentioned it to Kate. You know Caitlin Murray, the comedian? She's really big on Instagram, but she does a lot of mom parent humor. Her whole thing is like have a snack.
Yeah.
She's really funny. So she was on the show, and I told her this, and then she was like, it's crazy. I was literally writing a bit about this, but my friend Michael said back when the jobs were being delegated in caveman times, that the men were like, you know what? Fuck it, babe. You deal with the kid. I'll handle the tigers and the dinosaurs and shit. Like,
yeah, it's like,
you do that.
Yeah, you take care of that part. I'll go. That's brilliant.
And there's a truth to it. So no, yes. I love that. I love all that. To jump ahead to one of my last little scribbling thoughts for today, and then we'll zigzag. As someone who is quite prolific online with your, like, really just steady and prolific, you found your voice, you have your voice. Do you watch things online, or are you mostly using it as a tool to share your work? And what is that balance like? Basically, my thought was like staying zen in the storms of social media, or listening to yourself while being so active. How do you deal with that?
I was actually just thinking about this last week about, because you're always looking for motivation, looking for something new to talk about, looking for a different angle on something. Even going back and looking at videos and saying, maybe I could do this idea better. There's a better way to explain this. And I think as far as finding the zen, it's like I'm not. I guess the best way to explain it is every once in a while I start getting caught into that trap where I start thinking about the numbers. How many views am I getting? How many followers am I having? How, you're worried about all those things. And I have to keep stopping myself and say, stop chasing the algorithm. Stop trying to be like everybody else. I didn't get where I'm at because I was like everybody else. And I'm not going to get any further by just all of a sudden changing and becoming like everybody else. But it's just being in that moment to say, okay, what is it that I really feel like I need to say right now?
Mm-hmm.
And look, there's times, goes days, weeks, I just don't feel like I have anything to say. So I don't say anything. So, I'll reshare videos that I've already done or whatever. But I don't get hung up on it thinking I have to produce. I have to pound it out and pound it out and pound it out. Even though that's the message they tell you is just keep producing, keep producing, keep producing, keep producing. And I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I want to make sure that everything that I put out if nothing else, has meaning to me.
And is connected to the pulse of the moment, like you said, of like whatever you're feeling, even if it's a reshare. Like I'm similar. I'll, use older stuff, which is always new to new people, but it has to feel connected to that moment for me.
Yeah, there's that moment. It's like, hey, this is something I feel this right now.
It's coming back.
I'm going to share it again.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I'll take that and think, okay, there's even a better way to explain this.
Totally.
So I'll kind of not remake the video, but do more kind of an updated version of how I'm feeling and where I'm at. And I don't get hung up on the numbers. I just don't worry about it.
You said occasionally, just to because that was my next thought in that, like the car trouble, you said sometimes you might for a second. So you're able to quickly catch yourself is what you're saying?
Oh, sure. I fall back. I had that moment when we'd just been through the whole thing of getting the one part fixed. And then as we're moving on, all of a sudden I realized there's another problem that's even a bigger problem than the other one was.
Always.
And here I am. I'm just like, I've got to be somewhere in 2 days and I've got no way to get there. I don't have the money to fix this. I'm just frustrated because it's like, I don't know how to fix this.
Surrender.
And I got upset and I was just like, And one thing I allow myself to do is that when I feel that is I like, just feel it, just get it out of your system. Cause I don't want to hold it in. So I just go, okay, I'm upset about this. I'm frustrated with this situation. And then I go, and then I have this moment say, okay, we're done with our little pity party. Now, how do we fix this? Now, how do we get out of this situation? And then you start evaluating, okay, what's the best option, and start exploring those. And then it becomes a challenge, and then it becomes a game, and then it becomes fun. It's like, okay, this is right now I'm on the side of the freeway somewhere in Omaha, Nebraska, in a car that doesn't run. And I got to be in California in 2 days. How do I fix this? And I have no money to do it.
Crazy.
And all of a sudden you just surrendered. He's like, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know. But I was like, I'm going to make it. I'm going to be fine.
Wow.
And when I just say that, I'm going to make it, I'm going to be fine. And even if I don't make it, I'm still going to be fine. It's not the end of the world that I don't show up in Murphy's, California and do a comedy show. We can always reschedule. It's not the end of the world.
And yet for me, like I mentioned with that silly episode I did recently and the mic wasn't connected, so I had the worst audio and I'm about to put it out. It can feel like pressure, not literally the end of the world, but it can hijack you so quickly, for me at least.
Because you feel like, oh, I wasted all that time and I wasted their time and it's not going to be the way it is. And you feel all of those things. And it's like I said, I just let myself feel it. It's like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I did something dumb. It was foolish, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Now what do I do with it? What do I turn this into?
Two of my favorite versions of that. I interviewed a guy named Akunta Kente, who's a great artist, Joseph. And he said anytime something like that happens, I think he takes 2 breaths and then he yells out plot twist.
That's brilliant.
And I did that the other day, actually. And Molly was like, what? And I was like, don't worry. I told her what it was about. And then Jed Bartlett in The West Wing, laboring intensely over life and death, literally decisions as the president. And then once he made the decision, he would say, what's next? So I'm trying to embody and get into that, care, do your best, and then what's next? And don't let these like skin flap thoughts continue to.
You continue to second guess yourself. And you're going to drive yourself even more crazy.
And that's like you said, just making sure you get it out while you feel it. Tom Robbins in Half Asleep in Frog Pajamas, there's a character who is obsessed with money, And at one point, the co-character tells her, he's kind of a Zen trickster, that is how the universe, as a Zen teacher, teaches us, is through the things that we're obsessed with, algorithms or phones or whatever it may be, money. And that's like the master whacking you with the stick as you walk on the tightrope of yourself until it doesn't bother you anymore. Hopefully, if that's possible. I mean, I'm trying to get there, but it's tricky, which makes me specifically about the social media and being a creative in this time. I think from a lot of people I talk to in my own experience, it's definitely hard to, survive, period. Not just for artists, but especially in the face of all that, to feel like, am I really going to go for it and call up, all the savage production techniques of, especially when you're doing maybe filming stuff or music stuff. It's a lot, the inertia, and knowing that the landscape is dismal right now. Like, if you didn't have traction, would you still do what you do?
Well, yeah, you have to. I think that was probably the lesson that I learned, was like when I just stopped worrying about how I was doing, that's when it started taking off. When I stopped caring what the audience thought, when I stopped worrying about whether the numbers were good or not, when I stopped even thinking about that stuff and just thought, just make something that's fun to do. Just go out and make a silly video, go out, talk about this subject and in a crazy, ridiculous way, and just have fun with it. And once I started doing that, it just took off.
Wow.
And I've kind of had to relearn that lesson sometimes, because I'll sit there and go, okay, I'm going to, write it all out and plot it and plan it and get everything perfect. And then that video is not seen by, nobody cares.
I know. Isn't that funny?
And then that one that's just the spur of the moment. I have a half-baked idea and I'm not even quite sure what I'm going to say when I turn on the camera and I start going for it. And when I'm done, I think that's one of the dumbest things I've ever said or done, and that's the thing that connects with people.
Wow.
So
that's crazy. It's so true. Maybe there's something about the over attempting to do something that takes away that just natural good energy or some sort of less pressure.
I think
people
so.
feel.
I think that I think there's an energy, there's a frequency that we tap into when we first have that feeling.
Yeah.
And as we focus on it, we can either amplify it or just kill it. And most of the time we kill it because we're trying to make it perfect. And it's like, perfection is what kills everything. That desire to make everything perfect, have the perfect time to do it, the perfect location, the perfect everything. That perfection is what drives us crazy. And keeps a lot of people from doing anything because they think if I can't be perfect, then I'll look like an idiot, and I don't want to look like an idiot, so I won't do it at all. And that's what stops most people from doing anything at all, especially in the creative world.
100%. Which is why recently, partially why Don Quixote, who's always been a big hero of mine, in my own projection of him, like what he represents to me for sure, has been reemerging. And we just finished an album called Endangered Windmills, which I made with my son. It's a rap album, which is a return to my roots as a rapper, which also is an embodiment as a white boy at 11, stepping into this craft, which was predominantly nothing to do with my authentic roots, but loving it so much and gravitating towards it and being a Don Quixote of sorts, I guess, to walk through the mockery or people, especially close friends, being like, dude, are you serious? And then over time, just another initiation. So that's what this project was. But I've been, I want to hear a little if you want, since you said he speaks to you as well. But right now, again, in the world, for me, I'm 37. I have a child. I haven't succeeded in the way, like I was signed young. I had all these moments where it looked like, oh shit, he's blowing up and could blow up. Same as so many of us. Like what's the difference between you and I and so and so and so and so? All these little lines of like moments or timing, or maybe we all have our slots in life, is what my mom says, which I kind of like that one. It's like you have your slot in life and own that. So it's not a comparison game, and Anyway, so I've been thinking about and seeing this theme. How do I justify continuing to create like crazy? How do I, I'm aging quickly. I don't know if that's true. I feel like I'm aging quickly for some reason ever since having my son and how intense I am with my creations. And I have this 5-year-old beautiful boy who's bursting with creativity and trying to keep this dream alive, which is something you do as well. So yeah, just the ridiculous hero for all the Quixotes in the world.
Yeah, that's I always identified with Don Quixote because he saw things that nobody else saw. He was living in a world that nobody else was living in, and he made it real. He made it his. It's like that's a metaphor that we should all grab onto. That's why I love this song, to dream the impossible dream. From that to me, that is what it's all about, is standing up for something and fighting for something. It's brilliant. It's beautiful.
It really is.
And he's looked at as being a failure and a loser and a little nuts. And it's like, that's it. I've always identified with that. Something just magnificent about it.
Yeah, and again, now more than ever, especially as the playing field seems to be leveled more and more, where the people who might be following the logical paths are having backfire situations. It's getting interesting. Things are heating up.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
That's why my face is.
Well, you said you could fall into those traps because you think, once you've had success, you're going to continue to have success, and they don't see. They think it's going to be, it's always going to be there, and it's like, for some, yes, but for most, no. A lot of times, that moment of brilliance and success, that might be it. That could be the end of it. So just
what got it there, exactly. Just enjoy it. What got it there, if it's a true like vocation, passion that blossomed in the spotlight, can be wobbled by all that other stuff that comes, like you want to stay in that creative blue collar gardener flow to honor the muse, if you will. I think you got to be careful.
It's one thing that's always fascinated me was the one hit wonders. You'd have somebody who would just come up with a song that just connects on so many levels with so many people. It's so unique. It's so different. It's so original. And it's like, how are they not able to recapture this? And you go back and look, and a lot of times it's because they have that success and they think to get that success, they say, I'll just keep doing what I was doing. But what they end up doing is surrendering that. There was that one moment where they just threw all caution to the wind and said, I'm going to go for it. And then they want to keep it going. So then they hunker down and start playing it safe.
With that thing they found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is, the law of diminishing returns, where it just never has the same impact. And that's why I always say, if you hit viral, don't try to capture it again. Don't try to do it again, because you end up destroying the original. You know what I mean? Yeah. The best thing to do is just step back and go do something else.
100%.
At least that's the way it is for me. I mean, if I always try to do the same video, it's never happens.
Yeah.
You're never going to capture. You got to just be pushing the envelope and
just keep showing up. Showing up stubbornly, relentlessly with that. I remember, because I've invited you to collaborate on a fair amount of posts with our first project, and there was one day that just like hit. And it's like that kind of thing. You can feel it. Who knows why? It hits the tender hearts and minds of people in a certain moment, and it just starts to go. But it's no different necessarily than so.
Yeah, you never know.
Never know.
There's times where I've done something and it didn't really connect at all. And then months later, out of nowhere, all of a sudden it starts going crazy.
Exactly. And that's the Quixote kind of, the odds stack against you. The narrative you're telling yourself, you're like, well, I've been doing this 25 years and I still am not making a living off of it. Well, and it's like, no, you got to just commit, I think, at a certain point. If it's truly who you are, it doesn't mean you don't of course you bend, you adapt, perhaps you're going to be a great teacher, or you're going to, whatever it is. But once you identify that, it's pretty maddening, actually, when you really, I've found that to be like, you want to stop it. It's almost like a suicide craving of the passion. It's like, I don't know how to live with this, but I can't not. Please help me, show me the way to, it's tricky. But I think you said, go. My bad.
Yeah, I think I know for myself, I'm addicted to the chase. I enjoy, I've gotten to the point where I enjoy the failures, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm comfortable here. But at the same time, when it's successful, I enjoy it. I don't sit there, I don't sit there and think, oh yes, well, of course I'm a magnificent individual and brilliant. Of course this is because of me. Instead, it's like, you go fishing. I love fishing, because it's like, as much as you can have all the fancy gear and have all the years experience and everything, and you could be out there fishing and get nothing, and then some kid with a $4.99 pole from Walmart with the some little plastic nonsense that as the bait throws out there and hooks the biggest fish that you've ever seen.
Exactly.
A lot of us is just say, hey, I'm just gonna just enjoy. I enjoy fishing, whether I catch it or something or not.
Yeah,
I just enjoy this, and that's what you have to do, is just say, I enjoy just being here and being a part of this.
I love that.
And if something big comes of it, wow, that's going to be fantastic when it hits.
Yeah, Vonnegut said, make something like making art. It's not about making a living. It's about making your soul grow. So anything that is soul making, whether it's for me shooting hoops on that teeny little thing in the living room that I do for a couple hours a day, and the thrill of when I feel that swish every time, it's the same. It's like, that feels so good. And then when you miss it, you're like,
when you feel it going up all the way through, you just know it. You just know it. You just feel it.
You do.
It just came out the fingertips just right.
For real, though. It's true. So let's see. Well, a couple things that came through. I want to feel into what feels right to post in this conversation in this moment. The vinegar tasters came up talking to my dad the other day. Are you aware of that old painting with Confucius, Buddha, and Lao Tzu?
No, I am not, amazingly.
So for this part of the flow, so there's a painting apparently that represents Buddha, Confucius, and Lao Tzu. And the idea is that they're all tasting from one pot of vinegar, and each of them has a different expression representing their philosophy, and the vinegar is life. And so I forgot, the Confucius and Buddha are in some form of it's like Confucius was kind of strict in life needs to be organized, and like you need to kind of dominate through etc. So he's having kind of a scowly sort of expression, I believe. I believe Buddha might have a bitter flavor face, because life is something to be kind of life is suffering. Life is suffering. Exactly. Yes. And then Lao Tzu is smiling, because everything is exactly as it should be all the time.
That's beautiful. I'll have to find that.
Yeah. And that's what I meant with the vinegar and Winnie the Pooh. And Winnie the Pooh is a big part of the first episode we did, and A.A. Milne. And I just picked up a new A.A. Milne for Rock and I at the library. Not really a question in there, but I guess the perspectives and the vinegar felt good. And then the idea of killing Buddha, if you see a Buddha on the road, kill him. I believe Buddha said something to that effect. Yes. Don't feed your guru. Don't feed the gurus. If there's a zoo of gurus, don't feed them, because they're dangerous. Yeah, I guess we've already touched on that, but if there's anything you've found on your continued journey of just being okay with the terror of like everything.
Just being okay with, hey, we don't know. A quote that I came up with that I love to share with people. I say, most of philosophy isn't about finding the truth. It's about how to live without it.
Interesting.
And we
Wow.
don't know everything. We think we know everything. We think we can find out everything,
Hmm.
but we can't. We're very limited in what we can even perceive going on around us. And yet
100%.
we have this arrogant idea that we know what the truth is. We know what life is about. Oh, I follow the science. It's like it's the most ridiculous thing ever to
Hmm.
say that the science is final. So that's you misunderstand science. Then you misunderstand science is it's a journey. It's one discovery after another that leads to us to something else. And when you say, "Hey, we're going to stop right here," that's just self-imposed damnation. That's just stopping, saying, "Okay, this is all we can learn." So I've got it all figured out now. It's like how ridiculous of an idea and statement is that? And yes, it's terrifying. We have no idea where all this is leading. We have our ideas, we have our thoughts, we have our feelings, we have our beliefs, but ultimately we don't know. And it's just being okay with that. It's like I have faith in whatever being it is or universe or whatever that somehow this all works out. And if it doesn't, that's probably okay too.
Yeah.
It's not like I had any other plans.
I love it, man. No, and I think what we're seeing in the world's heating up perhaps is a melting down. It's like I forgot if it was the kaleidoscope metaphor my dad used to talk about, but if life is that ever changing kind of lens, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we see something that's horrifying, and we often will get stuck there, or we'll try to stick it because we're like, this is the worst, everything is horrible. Or we see something that's really good and we're like, oh, whoa, keep this, and it keeps trying to turn. And the more we try to hold it, the more resistance builds up, and then it has to like burn down or break. It has to keep going one way or the other. And so perhaps talking about what you just said eloquently, finding a discovery and then wanting that to be cemented as the thing, which not started, but even Moses is an example of that with like,
Yeah.
this is the word.
This is it. Well, one of my favorite things is the 10 blind men who are brought to an elephant, and they're all each touching a different part of the elephant. And says, "Oh, it's a big, huge leaf. No, it's a big rope. No, it's a big tree trunk. No, it's a small tree trunk." And all of these different things, and they're all right, but at the same time, they're also all wrong.
It's crazy you just brought that up because I thought of it like 130 seconds ago, to be exact. And my dad has a reverse version of that.
Oh,
I
really?
was going to say, from the perspective of the elephant, who's like, would you fucking get off me, you motherfucker? Stop fucking touching me, man.
That's brilliant.
So that's crazy you brought that up. But yeah, I mean, the burning down perhaps now is, I think of like companies are a version of that. Like, okay, you have this great idea, you've built a company, maybe it got successful, and now it's imposed upon your lineage as the thing. You know what I mean? It's like,
yes.
This is, and it's like, whoa, wait, what about my ideas? What about the new?
Yeah.
So there's something about the perpetuation and the great fight against the unknown that we're seeing everywhere. And it seems like, not to romanticize times that I was not a part of, but it seems like indigenous cultures, a lot of them had a better rhythm going on with the flows and respect of the things, and maybe enjoyed the experience of the universe, and were able to understand death and time.
Certain tribes are more in tune than others, but yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't mean to say all.
But yeah, absolutely.
But like on this land was very Chumash tribes. And anyway, it's interesting. Hopefully we're melting back down to more of a flow.
I think that more and more people are starting to just realize that just having lots and lots of stuff it's fine, but but there's better ways that we could all live rather than dedicating our resources to bigger, faster, more powerful cars and all these things, and faster computers and faster internet speeds. We realize that, hey, maybe having a nice place for kids to go and play is more important than that. Maybe just families being able to just live their lives and be happy and not have to be worried about where their next meal's coming from.
Yeah.
But allowing the system to work the way it should, rather than trying to impose it. Like every time everybody says, "Well, we should have the government do all these things," it's like the government caused all of these problems. It's like we all can sit there and go and point our fingers and say, "Here's where." Or every time you give ultimate power to any organization, they do horrible things, and then you think the solution to all the horrible things is give them more power. It's ridiculous. It's like, no, we need to find a way to get people to become embodied in themselves, to create a system that isn't just constantly taking advantage of each other all the time.
If you give your power away to anything, it's that it becomes a problem, I think. It's exactly that. If you give your power to another celebrity or another idea or your partner or anything, it's like my dad also said, if you don't occupy yourself, something else will. It's like a simple way of saying it, but it's if you allow there to be voids in your life, something that you don't want to deal with. Exactly. That you want to delegate, So the servant is the master always, I think, in many ways, perhaps, to use big grandiose metaphors. I wanted to, I don't know how long we've been flowing here, but we have some poetry. We have to film you holding a balloon dramatically, somberly, gazing at the ocean, engaging with the unknown and being okay with it while my son and I play wiffle ball.
Yeah, exactly. That is the question.
Exactly. But not to go too deep or wherever you want to go, if anywhere, on this topic, but the embodiment, as I mentioned earlier, rooted in experiencing of loss and pain. So we didn't touch on it in your first episode. I don't even know if I was aware of it. I think maybe, but that you spent time in the military.
Yes.
As a Marine. Yes. And thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
And you had, I think you mentioned this at some point, but a devastating loss at one point with a child, which again, I don't mean to just bring these things up randomly, but yeah, I guess just anything you would share with other people, myself included, who are navigating the tenderness and the physical experience and the psychic and the whirlwind of the illusion, which is real on some level and can grab us and be really, really painful to the point where no sort of wisdom can touch it. It can send you into chemically, like states of just pain, which is something. Just like how you continue and find your you-ness through all of that.
Well, my daughter, she's been in pain for many months, and she's had some back issues, and she's been to doctors, and she's been to chiropractors. She's been to emergency room several times and trying to just something to stop the pain, and nobody could figure out what was wrong with her. She finally just got to the point where she's just like, I can't stand this pain anymore. And to her credit, her friend was like, look, you really need to go check into a hospital and insist that they look at what's going on with you. And so she finally did. She went, checked into a hospital. The first few days, they thought, oh, you're just trying to get pain meds. It's all in your head. And finally, they went and took her in for an MRI and found the fracture in her back. But at the same time, they also found cancer. And they had to do a biopsy, found out that it was a very aggressive stage 4 cancer. It was very, very malignant. And it was to get the final diagnosis of what was going on, her back was fractured because of the weakness that was caused by the cancer, because it goes in, it just sucks all the nutrients out of everything, and basically made her bones very brittle and put her in a lot of pain. and all this stuff. And, you know, she was relieved to just finally know that it wasn't all in her head, that it was real. You know, she was like, yeah, okay. You know,
I told you.
So there was that relief. And then also just knowing that now she's getting the medication she needs to get to deal with the pain, and that she's now on a plan to do the treatment and everything. And we were there when she first went into the hospital, but then I went on the road. So I was gone for a few weeks and had planned to be on the road for the rest of the year. And then the one morning, the doctor called me and said, you know, Tia said that you should be included in the plan, and I'm just here to tell you what's going on. So he broke down everything that was happening. And I remember the moment when he, you know, to hear it before what it's talked about, well, it might be this, it could be this, could be that, could be that. You're still very hopeful. But there's that one moment when the doctor says, it is stage 4 cancer. We need to get aggressive with the treatment. And without saying it, because I've been through it with my brother and everything, and, you know, he passed away in January after fighting it for over a decade. And knowing what it means when the doctor finally says, this is what the problem is, that's when it all just, you know, like I said before, then it's just maybe. But when he finally says, this is what it is, when that moment hits you, you know, it's everything, you know, because this is my beautiful little girl, and she's so young, she's still in her 20s, and she hasn't gotten to live life yet. She hasn't gotten to really do everything that she had wanted to do. And here's this sitting there. And so we go through that moment, and I talk to the doctor and I thank him. And then, you know, she's on the phone, because I've seen what this does. I've seen what this journey is, and it's not a pleasant one. It's a scary one. And it's one where it's a lot of blind corners, because you have no idea what's coming around, and everyone's journey is different. Yes, it could be over very quickly. It could be. But hearing the prognosis, it's like, it's not going to be. This is the cancer's spread to her lungs, to her ovaries, to her back. It's spread quite a bit already. And even though she's young, it's still, there's this battle that needs to be fought. And it's not an easy battle. And just having that moment of just, you know, telling her, I'm sorry. I wish I could stop this, but I can't. But knowing that we could be there for her was all that mattered to me. And we had plans, other plans that week, that we were going to stay where we were at. And I, you know, when the phone call was over, I just looked at my wife. I said, we have to go home. We have to leave now. And we've got to go be with her. And we weren't in a situation that was, you know, that was a good idea, that was the best idea, that if you were, you know, we didn't have the money to do it. We knew it was going to be a burden to do it, but I knew that being with my daughter at that time was more important than anything else. You know, a few credit cards got to go unpaid. The house payment's going to take a little bit longer to get to. We have to be there. This is going to be more important, because in 20 years, I'm not going to remember that I was behind on a house payment and had to live off credit cards for a little bit to get through this. I'm not going to remember that, but I'm going to remember being there for my daughter, being there, you know, to help her go through this. And that's what was more important to me than anything. And when you evaluate that to everything else in life, all these things that you think are problems, In a year, you won't even remember what they were. You would completely forget. I mean, think about 5 years ago. What was the most biggest problem you had 5 years ago? I bet you have any idea, unless you wrote it down somewhere. You have no idea what it was. You have no idea what that problem was.
And if it stuck out, then it was a significant, like, heart initiation of sorts. You know what I mean? Like a death or a birth or, the little stuff doesn't mean nothing.
Yeah. When someone dies, and like when my, hearing my niece call me to tell me that my brother had died, I've been expecting it for years. But when it finally hit, it hit hard. And at that moment, I'm not thinking about the fact that I gained 5 pounds or maybe my blood pressure is a little high. None of this stuff, behind it, none of this stuff matters, at that moment. And when you realize that none of that matters at all, it's like, it's just stuff. It's just, we all have bills to pay. We all have problems. We all have, difficulties at work. We always have difficult people in our lives that we have to deal with. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't really matter.
There's an acupuncturist guy named Don Ha, who's a fantastic maniac, poet, explorer. And he told me once that, I think these are his words, I'm not sure, but that life is a deadline to love. And I like that idea of life is a deadline to love. And it's, and I think a lot of the maybe what's coming through of the owning nothing, it's like not using our philosophies or even our creativity, let alone vices or whatever, any coping mechanisms to try to armor ourselves from anything that's meaningful, that's beauty, that's love, that's loss, that's grief. I don't know, just being naked in the storm and but then not losing our minds. I don't even want to say I'm sorry, but obviously, I mean, I just feel for you, man, for all of that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But, as I like to say, look, all of this has a deadline. We think that it's going to last forever, but there's an expiration date on everything, on your car tires, the tank of gas you just put into it,
on your ass.
Your own butt, everything. There's an expiration. Your relationship's all going to change.
I know.
Just all the stuff, the food, the fancy cars, your phone, everything has an expiration date. None of this is going to last forever.
But that's the Dimitri Martin joke that I think I may have told you, but I've said before. Do you know him, Dimitri Martin?
Oh yes, yeah, he's funny.
He does this milk joke about, which is a perfect analogy for what you're talking about, because I believe, I'll say the joke, but I'll say the joke. He says, milk's a funny thing, it comes out of the udder, it's fresh, it's delicious, you put it in the fridge, it's great, the next day. And, after a little while, it starts to be a little sour, not so good, then worse, then suddenly like, oh, this is fucking disgusting. And then suddenly it's cheese. And he goes, way to turn it around, milk. He says, I go over to my friend's house and it's like filthy, and I start to pick up some. He's like, no, leave it alone. I'm waiting to see where this is going. But I feel like that is that life is cheese, or like God is cheese.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that does.
But if we let it, if we don't try to throw it away, I don't know what the man now poured out.
Yeah.
If we let the milk of our existence and life, and trusting that. I mean, I've had moments in my journey where I see people, I don't know about you, but maybe it's because I was diagnosed bipolar. So I have a twinge toward the magical sometimes. Maybe it's all projection and brain chemistry, but I've seen things that feel like, wait a minute, was that like God for a second, or was there some sort of divine? And it feels like in those moments, which might just be projections from my soul, but even so, then that means somewhere in me, there's a knowing perhaps that everything is not only okay, but it's like just wait and see what's coming,
Wait
but
and
not
see.
to live like, I guess for the extreme version of the people who are waiting for virgins in the sky, not to go for living because you're going to, but there is something like, this is not in vain feeling, all this,
Yeah.
you know,
Is
something.
when you start to realize that even the bad things that you experience in life, a lot of great things come of those things.
Exactly.
You know, and when you think, oh, I would not go back and change that. Well, it's because if you did change that, it puts you on a different path, directing you away from something incredible that's in your life.
Car trouble.
Yeah.
Or anyway, there's so many beautiful ways of saying that, but the appointment with death, and then the guy runs away and then death is waiting for him. That whole story.
Yes.
It's the same. It's like, it's all, yeah, there's a magnetic destiny to the situation. And there seem to be these laws, almost like micro, macro, I love your quote about philosophy helps us not to find the truth, but to live without it.
Yes.
That's awesome. But yeah. So as we wind down and our friend Death cruises us into some, I don't know where we're going today to park. Maybe we're parking in a driveway. Keep it simple. My last two thoughts. Escaping the gravity of grooves, becoming comfortable with discomfort. You spoke a bit about that on our last episode, that you were feeling the Robin Williams call to step deeper out of your comfort zone on stage and to embody this kind of, I forgot exactly how you put it, but almost like really just there without knowing and being comfortable in this like total suspendedness, and that you said you were kind of teetering but didn't know, and I was just curious where you've been with your
I'm
process.
becoming that more and more on stage, where I'm just freer and freer, and not, I've never been one to really sit down and think, okay, I'm going to say this, this, and this.
Yeah.
Just kind of I have lots of stuff that I have in the repertoire, and I just, use it wherever. But I find myself experimenting more and really pushing myself to just have more fun on stage.
Being more comfortable.
It's funny because I don't get stage fright. Because I've performed so many times and I have so much material. I know I'm not worried. I know it's going to go well.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of craving that feeling again, that feeling of unsurety. The butterflies,
you don't get it ever, even like today?
I just don't get it. And I want to. I know this sounds crazy, but I want to. I want to feel that nervous energy.
I get it. I got it today. I just get it. Even when it's like AJ's coming over, I get it.
So
Anybody.
I just want it.
Let's trade places for a day.
Sure.
I'm like a trembling nerve. I go to the grocery store and I'm like, and I used to be so charismatic. It's such a funny time. Anyway, enough about me. What do you think about me? Do you know that joke? The joke, what does a narcissist say? Enough about me. What do you think about me? To end this, I heard this joke from a trainer at the gym who heard that I appreciate jokes, and my dad and I are always collecting jokes. I told him a joke, and he walks up to me in the elliptical and tells me this joke. I don't remember the comedian's name, but it really feels like a good joke. So I wanted to share it with you, and then see if there's any joke that you wanted to leave us with. No pressure at all, at all. From you or one of your favorite jokes. But anyway, the joke is a guy's being interviewed for a position, and the interviewer says, "What do you consider to be your greatest fault or weakness?" And the guy says, "Honesty." And the interviewer says, "I actually don't think that honesty is really a fault, And the guy says, "I don't give a fuck what you think." I don't know why. I just really like
That's funny.
The poignant truth of that joke of like authenticity. People say loosely they want the truth, but anyway, you don't have to leave us with a joke.
Well, I have one.
Okay.
That I've retired it from my act, but
perfect.
One of my favorites I've ever come up with was, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little shook up, a little disheveled because I kind of had a harrowing experience getting here. I was almost in a car accident. And it would have been a very serious accident too. But fortunately, at the last second, I managed to change my mind.
Wow. Another truth-telling joke. Amazing. And perfect way to end for car trouble on the Pink Hearse ride. Thank you, man. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
This, feels like we traveled many dimensions. All right. Peace, y'all. Lots of love. You already know. See you soon. In the summertime,